Hi guys, today I'd like to share an installation which we've just completed. Three very exciting machines. I can only take credit for the one, but the other two I'm sure you'll find extremely exciting as well. So without further ado, let's go and take a look. Start with the first two, which few of us mere mortals can afford, but are nevertheless interesting to the petrol heads amongst us. A couple of Weiss Blitzen from Zuffenhausen in the form of a 260 kilowatt Porsche Carrera S and the 300 kilowatt Carrera RS. Beautiful machinery. But these two beauties share a home with another of my favorite bits of tech in the form of the Fox ESS 10.5 hybrid inverter system. Also finished in white, and admittedly not as exciting as the other white machinery here, but it will make your life a lot better when you're not out on the streets burning tar. As far as the inverter and battery go, the Fox is certainly one of the more aesthetically pleasing products around and has performance to match. The inverter in this instance is a 10.5 kilowatt single phase inverter coupled to a stack of 4.03 kilowatt hour lithium ion blocks. That can be from 2 batteries all the way up to 7 batteries, giving you 28 kilowatt hours of storage. Most importantly, it is a high voltage system operating at 450 volts as opposed to the more familiar low voltage inverter systems, which are typically 24 or 48 volts. Why is this important? Simply put, the high voltage system performs better than the low voltage systems as it can deliver a lot quicker for sudden load demands and can also recharge the batteries a lot quicker. This is quite important when you have frequent load shedding with short intervals. You get the charge in between. Additionally, a high voltage system works at much lower current than low voltage systems, therefore thinner cabling can be used, which is always less expensive. The obvious question is, well, how much more does this cost? Well, actually, one might think it's a Porsche versus VW type of pricing separation, but in fact, a top-selling low-voltage brand, which many of us are familiar with, actually costs 3,000 Rand more for their 8.8 kilowatt version than the 10.5 kilowatt Fox high-voltage system. From a battery perspective, a similar quality popular local low-voltage battery works out about 5,000 Rand cheaper than the Fox, assuming 14 to 15 kilowatt hours. But that does not take into account the 15 to 20% performance advantage of the high voltage. Additionally, there are no cables between the individual batteries, rather than they have inboard connectors. This reduces cost amidst cable faults or accidental disconnects and is generally a much smoother operation, very quick to install. From a price perspective, there's not much difference between the 8.8 low voltage system and the 10.5 high voltage solution. The performance advantage lies firmly with the Fox system, as not only is it 10.5 kilowatts, but the high voltage demand response gives you a lot better performance. The fact that the Fox is a match system as well, all the hardware and software comes from one manufacturer, also makes reliability, installation and expansion very simple. Other benefits, Fox 10.5 includes 4 MPPT trackers. So the MPPT trackers are the actual solar chargers. It has 4 of them going up to 550 volts each. And that is kind of what limits the amount of PV that you can input to the system. You can also parallel up to 10 of these 10.5 inverters, and they're so simple to use and install. And the remote monitoring app, which is either PC or mobile phone based, is really simple and easy to use. So let me give you a quick guide around that app. Right, so here we are. This is the app. We've just gone into the landing screen and you can see the sites at the top, and this is sort of an overall of all the sites. And let's take a look at a site specifically. So this would be the view that you would have. So this particular site has got 6.44 kilowatt peak of solar. However, it does have 3 separate panels connected to a power optimal geyser box, but it's completely separate to this system. So we're just looking at the Fox system right now. So you can see it's now about 9:30 in the morning, and they've made 2.7 kilowatt hours. The total yield for this system on the right here is 3099 kilowatt hours since inception, which was roughly 6 months ago. And then today they have made R7 or saved R7.69 so far. And then you have the graph at the bottom here, which basically shows you the time and what the output power was. And you can see there they're using grid power. This is sort of 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. And there's very little load power, about 800 watts. So that's probably things like fridges and stuff like that. And then you can see where you wake up at 7:20 and the kettle goes on and various other things happen. And so that just gives you a little look at the various things. So you can see the load power. If you're going to feed in, which you have to be careful of, you only do that in municipalities where you've been registered and you've registered to feed in and the meter's been set up. And then the output power is the power that's actually coming out of the system. So you can see at this particular moment there was 1.13 kilowatts coming out of the system. So then we go to the device, which is actually a closer drill down, and we actually click on that, and then we can see an overview again in a little bit more detail, the same graph, and really the stuff that you want to look at is real-time data. So there you can see the flows. So the top left, the pink, is the grid. So they're using 15 watts from the grid right now. The solar is making 2.268, which is being split. 1.34 is going into the house, the blue on the top right, and 674 watts is going to recharge the battery. So very little grid usage at this point in time. And let's have a look at the battery a bit close up. So you can see the battery is charging. This particular battery is a 16 kilowatt hour Fox energy cube. So there's 4.1 kilowatt hour batteries. So it's actually 16.4. But yeah, so it's busy charging up. And the way this is set up, just you won't have this as the user on your screen, but I have it, is that we can set various time periods that you want the grid to be able to charge, and certain time periods you don't want it to be able to charge. So it's just getting in there. Okay, I don't know why it's giving me that, because I've got the data. So you can see the minimum state of charge. So when we get to 10% on this battery, we cut it off. We never ever go below that. In fact, we could probably set this to 20% now, because they've added the additional battery to the 16 kilowatts, and that will just extend the overall life of the battery over the years. So the less you discharge it, the better it will be. And then the minimum state of charge on grid, that's kind of your hold point. So if you're using battery during the day or whenever it may be, it will allow you to use 30% of the battery rather than the grid. But then when it gets to 70%, it says, okay, I'm going to hold on here. I'm not going to provide any more power to the loads, because I need to save this 70% for load shedding. So it's probably, again, that could probably be dropped now as we've added the extra battery just recently. So that kind of shows you just some of the battery stuff that we can do. There is also over here, and this is for the installer as well, all the setting parameters. It'll take a while to get in. There we go. So you've got all the setup is in here. And in fact, a lot of this is set to default, so we don't even have to set this. But this is probably the major screen the basic parameters to. So you set your minimum state of charge here, which we said was 10%. We allow the battery to charge up to 100%, of course. And then again, the minimum state of charge is 70% on grid. In other words, that's where our hold point, where we don't discharge anymore other than when there's no grid. We don't export anything, so that's no feed in. The system's on, 50 hertz is our normal thing. We're running it in UPS mode. In other words, we want the transition from grid to battery and back to be completely seamless. So we don't want any flickers of lights, we don't want any reboots of decoders, etc., etc., etc. It must be full UPS mode. So that's kind of the main screen that we set up there. But there's, as you can see, a bunch of other stuff that we have here. Some of the stuff I don't even touch. I leave that to the Fox techies. Because if you fiddle with it, it can upset the system. So that would be not advisable. And yeah, so that's a brief overview of the system. Very simple, easy to use, and I mean, really, the things you'll want to see will be these. This is kind of where you'll spend your time, is looking at the real-time data. How much are we using now, and what is my battery doing? So if load shedding is looming, you want to go in, and ideally you'd like to see 100% battery sitting there, and okay, we're okay for load shedding coming up. And if it's not, then you want to look back here and say, well, what is using all this power? And if you look at the loads here, and it's maybe 4 or 5,000 watts, then you've got to take a look around at what's switched on, in the house that's using all that power. So it's a very easy to use piece of kit or application. So good. So that's the overview of this site that we've just done. Some really fancy cars, which kind of not really relevant to the video, but very cool. And I think you'll agree that as far as inverters and batteries go, Fox is one of the cooler products around, certainly more modern, and I think the high voltage says it all, which way the industry is moving. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.